All right, guys. This is Marsha Archer, is the founder and president of M Squared Public Relations, an award-winning agency specializing in travel, hospitality, and lifestyle brands, just to name a few, I guess. Established in 2008, M Squared has secured over $500 million. Again, $500 million in traditional and social media coverage under her leadership. Before founding M Squared, Marsha was a little lazy, so she just had some roles as a PR director for Four Seasons Hotels and Restaurants, the Home Depot, Habitat for Humanity International. She's a certified crisis communications expert and has been recognized as a primary contact for media outlets worldwide. Her expertise spans hospitality, travel, food and beverage, spa, and retail sectors, again, just to name a few. In 2022, Marsha received an honorable mention as Media Relations Professional of the Year by PR Daily's Media Relations Award, and it keeps on going. Beyond her professional achievements, Marsha is deeply committed to community service, served on boards such as Meals on Wheels Atlanta, Jeffrey Fashion Cares, Castle Project, Alzheimer's Disease and Research Center at Emory University. Marsha's dedication to the community is second to none, and her philanthropic reasons for life, it's unmatched. Marsha, welcome to the show. This is Turjo Talks, and I'm your host, Turjo. How are
Thank you for
you?
having me, Turjo. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to be here.
I know, and just for the audience here, I've known Marsha for 5, 6 years now,
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
and she yells at me more than she gives me love, and she's such a professional.
I like having
And
my way.
I know you always do. That's easy. And Marsha is very close friends with my wife, and that does not help the cause either. So they gang up on me all the time. So how are you?
I'm good, Turjo. Thanks for having me.
So tell me, what do you do? Because you do it all. Help me understand for the audience.
Yeah,
What does Marsha Archer do, and what does M Squared do?
yeah. I've been a publicist all my career. And, it's interesting how I got here. The story is I'm an only child, first of all. So my parents kind of doted on me,
Right.
right? And so I didn't know what I wanted to do. And back then, every kid wanted to be what one of their parents was doing. Thought I wanted to be a nurse, took a position as an intern. I was a candy striper in a local hospital. And I was like, I'm going to try being a nurse. And I went to the physical therapy department. And they were like, okay, you got to take this patient up. But before you do that, take his socks off and put his shoes back on because he's done with therapy.
Right.
And I was like, wait a minute, I have to touch his feet? No go.
Yeah.
So that's when I knew that,
Yeah.
healthcare and anything in the hospital was not for me.
Right.
And my parents just always said, you're so nosy. You're so inquisitive. I didn't have any brothers or sisters around. So only people to talk to were my parents. And I would ear hustle their conversations all the time
Right.
and come up with questions. So calling me nosy all the time, I was like, what do I do with being nosy? And I
There's
was
got to
like,
be something.
PR, that's what I need to do.
So
Something in journalism.
how does one become like so? You hated healthcare.
Yeah, hated it.
You're a caring person, but not so much where you
Not
want to
so
do that for a
much.
living. So how do you jump into that?
Yeah, I started when I went to college.
Mhm.
I started thinking I wanted to be, in the newspaper and write for the
Right.
newspaper. Then I thought I wanted to be on camera and do TV news. And then I realized I didn't want to do any of those. I really liked being behind the scenes
Right.
and just making the magic happen. So, like with you in the past, getting you ready for TV, getting you ready for an interview,
Right.
it's just a really nice way to, kind of do it all. And
Right.
so PR has been so self-serving for me.
That is so cool,
Yeah.
and you're very, very good at it.
Thank you.
What is the hardest thing about your role in PR? What is the hardest thing about PR?
I would say the hardest thing about PR is it's just so ever changing, right? You have new editors, you have social media, which has come along in however many years and has completely changed the game,
Right.
right? So now it's not just about having the latest news. It's about how quick
Right.
can you have the latest news. And so you've got social media outlets that are trumping a daily newspaper
For sure.
and their online news. So it's a matter of keeping up with what's going on and how quickly it's all changing.
And it must be super hard because our attention span is so low.
Oh, and it gets lower and lower and lower.
Right.
Mhm.
Like I'm just thinking about, talking to you right now. how do I catch the news? It's usually swiping the screen,
Yeah,
literally,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So
And
to
now you've
grab
got
the
AI
attention.
around the
Oh,
corner,
yeah,
and that will change the game again.
right.
Yeah.
So walk me through this. So out of college, you get into PR.
Yeah.
Around 2008 or so, you
Yeah.
start
I start
M2.
M squared PR in 2008.
And how hard was that? What are the first challenges that you faced?
It wasn't hard. I kind of moonlighted with M squared PR for a number of years.
Right.
I was working full time and just taking on clients that were relatives or friends and just doing small things for them on the side. But it quickly grew to be too much.
Right.
And then I had to make a decision, like, do I keep the full-time job and the benefits, or do I try to kind of create, my own kingdom over here? And I eventually tried to create my own kingdom in 2008, the worst time, right? 2008,
Something
recession.
called a little financial crisis.
Everyone thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
But it was the best time. Turned out to be the best time.
Really.
And there's really never a good time when
Right.
you're stepping out on faith.
When you're an entrepreneur,
Right.
there's never a good time.
Right.
The hardest thing is starting.
Exactly.
Right.
And I just got started.
So when you start M2, you're going through all this chaos. Did you have a big team with you, or was
I didn't. It was
bootstrap?
me. It was just me. And I remember talking to someone who did PR for a number of years, Melissa Libby. She was an agency owner for, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years at that point.
Right.
And I called her up and I said, let's go to coffee. She knew I was on my own. She knew I had come from Four Seasons. And I said, I need to talk to you. I'm stressed out and I need to know if it's time to hire. She says, if you have that question, it's time to hire.
So what was
And
your first hire?
My first hire was actually a girl by the name of Abby. She was a UGA grad. I met her and I liked her personality. I didn't know what I was looking
Yeah.
for. I just knew I wanted
Needed some
somebody
help.
I liked.
Yeah.
And I liked her a lot. And she started with me right after that,
Right.
stayed for 3 years, left for a year, and came back to me for another 2 years.
I actually remember that name for some reason.
Yeah.
So you start on this mission, not knowing where you're going to end up. You sound like an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
right?
And I'm in my basement.
in your basement. How
in my
about that? Even
basement.
makes the story even better.
Yeah.
So then you launch this company,
hmm
just knowing that you're going to outwork everyone.
Yeah.
How do you get new clients? So from family, friends, and how do you get to the corporate clienteles?
That was the interesting part of M squared PR because I didn't really know what I wanted to focus on. I had done a little bit of everything. Habitat for Humanity, Home Depot, Four Seasons, none of those really go together.
Right.
And so it really was incumbent upon me to pick what I wanted to do. So I had clients in every sector, commercial, real estate, entertainment, and I was trying to be a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
It was not working, Turjo.
Right.
I finally had to take a step back and figure out what I really wanted to do. And I realized just how much I loved the role that I played at Four Seasons.
Yeah.
And so I decided to focus on hospitality.
Oh, cool. And that's a key point I want to make sure that people understand that a lot of entrepreneurs, it's okay too, by the way, but at one point you have to narrow down what you
Absolutely.
want.
Find your niche.
I speak to so many people and they're like, here's what I do. Bam, 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 bam.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, as an investor, send me a text message of what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And 90% of the time I get a reply saying, well, we need to meet. I have a presentation for you.
Because it's so much.
It's so much. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not smart enough. You might have to find someone else. And the reason is that they're not focused. It doesn't have a narrow scope.
Yeah.
It's I do everything. Well, you
Yeah.
can't do
You
everything.
can't do everything.
Right.
Yeah.
You're a big person on core values. What was your first core mission statement? Like, you know what? This is after I realized what I'm going to do, narrow it down. What's next? What's that mission?
I think my first mission was under promise, over deliver, because I knew for me, everything about PR and journalism is deadline driven. And so when I was building the team, I said, the last thing we want to do is promise or commit anything to a client that we're not able to deliver on. So if you've got to push that deadline out just to give yourself a little bit more time, I'd rather you do that than overpromise and then underdeliver.
I agree with you. However, it is really difficult to do, right? So walk me through a scenario here. We're sitting down here. I'm M2 squared.
Mm-hmm.
You're Miss Marsha Archer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm intimidated. I want this client. I want it really bad. So I'm sitting in front of you. How do I stay honest and not try to promise you the moon right? Because you're in a sales mode right now. You're
Yeah.
trying to close this deal.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Well, I think it goes back to that last point, right? Finding your niche. When I found my niche, I was able to sit at any table and talk to anyone about their business because I knew hospitality like the back of my hand.
Right.
So that was what I think allowed me to sit at the table in confidence, is that I could drop names like Four Seasons and say I was their outgoing PR director, right? For the past almost 8 years. That comes with a lot of weight.
Yes.
And so I leaned on those relationships to get me a seat at the table. And then once they finally met me, they knew I knew what I was doing.
And I'm sure you received some no's and I couldn't work with you, right? And how were you okay with that? And you still stayed at your true core.
Yeah.
How does that work?
So for me, it was never a no. I never really heard no. I heard not now.
Okay.
Because in this industry, everything is contractual.
Right.
And I knew that someone's contract was about to run out,
Right.
whether it was a year or 6 months. And I would just circle back. And that was always my next question. When does the current contract expire?
Right.
And once they told me that, I put that into my database and I would follow up with them.
You're the perfect guest for this show because, I love people with that spirit. I tell people when people ask me, what do you do for a living? I'm a salesperson. That's what that's what I am. A no means I'll call you tomorrow. A no means maybe this is not the right product. We'll find something else. A no is not a no.
Exactly.
No, it's another time.
Right.
And that's incredible. But
Yeah.
you need to make sure you're confident.
Got to be
To
confident.
go back.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What advice do you give young entrepreneurs, especially trying to create a brand, right?
Oh, yeah. Especially for the young ones, it's all about their personal brand. I
Right.
always tell them to start there. Like, who are you? And they're big on social media 9 times out of 10. And I want to look at that.
Right.
Is it consistent with what you say you want to do? Right. And what does your personal brand look like? Are you in a picture with beer in hand in every other image? That's not the personal image that you want to come across, right? So I always talk about that, but I always talk about relationships because I think that gets lost on a lot of people, is building the relationship. A lot of times they don't want to talk or have the conversation or take the time for the coffee chat unless there's instant gratification. Sometimes it's just about building the relationship, putting that in your back pocket and allowing that person to connect with you or you to connect with them when the time is right and there's a mutual understanding of a win-win. So it's always about relationships and personal branding. The two go hand in hand.
That's incredible. So be careful with what you put out there on social media.
Gosh, yeah. Even if you delete it, it's still out there.
Yeah. Somebody saw it.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that is really important because, again, sometimes we're just mindless, right? You're out there taking a video of yourself and think it's fun.
Yep.
And that's when you have to realize that if you're an entrepreneur, it's beyond you.
Absolutely.
How do you deal with that stress?
It is a stress. It's the work-life balance thing, which is a phrase that I think people just throw out.
Yeah.
But it has to be something you truly live. My biggest thing and promise to myself is to treat work like life and life like work. So, for example, one of my big things for just kind of keeping my center is I will schedule everything that gives me self-gratification. So my spa appointments, my hair appointments, my nail appointments, time with my girlfriends. It's going on my calendar because it's just as important as the work event that was on my calendar as well. And I don't move those things. I make everything else work around them.
No, that's important. I'm similar to you on that sense where I wake up very early.
Yeah.
Extremely early.
We always had that in common. By
And
4 or 5 o'clock, I'm out of the house.
I want to get the kids, so I'll go to the gym, get the kids ready for school,
Mm-hmm.
and then Habib and I will have coffee in the morning or breakfast before I leave. Because at that point, I took care of all the most important things in my life.
Right.
And then everything else could start at that point.
Yeah.
Very, very important. It gives you grounding.
Absolutely.
Right. So going back to M2 here, now you have Abby.
Mm-hmm.
Your company just doubled with Abby, right?
Literally.
Now you're scaling.
Yeah.
How do you scale and keep the core mission again, right? The values, because that's really hard to do for people. How do you do that? How do you maintain that?
One of the biggest things that I wanted to make sure of when I built the agency and started ramping up with employees was that every client felt like they had a person that they had a relationship with. So, 1 year into the agency, I expanded into Charlotte and
Wow.
opened up an office there. And within 3 months, I was like, this doesn't feel like the M Squared PR that I initially built. I need someone on the ground in Charlotte.
Right.
So before I knew it, I was not only growing the team, I was growing the footprint of the agency, right, into the Southeast. So it really is about, making sure that your clients feel taken care of and that they have a relationship with and a rapport with the people on the team, that if anything goes awry. So for example, we knew that with restaurants, they really came to life after 5. But at 5 p.m., what are we doing? Our day is ramping down, right? But what if you've got the client who says, I think Beyonce just walked into my restaurant.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Yeah.
They've got to have somebody that they feel comfortable calling or texting and that they can pick up the phone and that person is going to answer them and walk them through it. So that was the biggest thing to me, is just building that rapport and building that relationship.
That's very good information there. So now, work-life balance, right? I guess what you're saying is that understand the client really well. Understand their needs first, and then schedule your life around that.
Correct.
Because I tell people all the time that my schedule revolves around my people, not the other way around. As an entrepreneur or CEO, you're working for everyone else.
Everyone else.
Right? I could be fired at any given time by my customer, right? So and I don't think people understand that, because now M2 is a cool company. You have a lot of flair going on. Some people could go, you know what? I'm the owner. I'm the entrepreneur. I'm the CEO.
Yeah.
You guys handle it.
Yeah.
I see a lot of that. What advice? When is the right time to even do that? Is there a right time?
I don't know if there's a right time, Turjo, but burnout is real.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think what drove me, because now the agency has pivoted yet again, and I'm more of a solopreneur, right? Strictly doing crisis communications and maybe 1 or 2 hospitality clients. But what drove me to that point was I started to dislike the agency I built, and I couldn't figure out why. And for me, when I really pulled back and took a look at everything, and the pandemic, bless it, was really the time that it gave me to take a step back, because there were no clients. All my hospitality clients went away. That's when we met, right? And during that time, it gave me great pause to say, what don't I like? Because if I'm getting up on a Sunday going, oh my gosh, tomorrow's Monday and I've got to go to work. Something's wrong.
Something's wrong, yeah.
And I realized it was that my team was leaving at 5, but at 5 o'clock, it was like my day was just beginning.
Your clients are just getting up.
Everybody was pulling on me from 9 to 5. Now at 5, it's time for me to do the things that are on my to-do list. That got to be too much really fast. 15 years later.
It's, not everyone, that is powerful. Not everyone could say, you know what, I'm not proud of what I have just built. Someone would really do that.
Yeah.
Again, how do you find the courage to even speak to yourself like that? Yeah, because a lot of people are so optimistic, it hurts them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I was optimistic. I would take on new clients and hire new people. I even tried to find a vice president or a director or someone who just handled clients. Nothing really worked, because at the end of the day, I was sitting down at the table with these prospect clients, winning their business, and they still wanted me. Right. And so it was hard for me to sneak out the back door and say, well, here's your person and they're going to work with you 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. My phone would still ring. The text messages still came in and the emails still had me in CC. So it was really hard for me to step back. But eventually I just had to do it. And it was a self-conversation. And it was a long one.
And I'm sure your clients appreciate that too.
They did.
They're receiving the best version of Marsha.
It was a mixed emotion though of, oh my gosh, not only are you going away, the whole agency is going away from hospitality. And it was a hard pill for many of them to swallow. So I tried to do my best in terms of pushing someone their way that was another agency that I found comparable to myself. And I've got a lot of friends in PR in Atlanta.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, they were able to take care of all my clients.
And I know you worked with, some big names out there, right? Home Depot, Four Seasons, Tom Ford, if I'm not mistaken. What is that like? I know everybody wants a big name, a Tom Ford.
Yeah.
Four Seasons again. What is that like?
It's surreal.
Yeah.
It really is surreal. I mean, we've done Givenchy, we've done Balmain, we've done a ton of big names. And while it is a wow for a minute, it can be very overwhelming because when we worked with Givenchy, we were working with their Paris fashion house. So now you're talking about a different time zone. We were working with their New York office, which, New York never sleeps. So at 8:00, we were still going. So, while it was great and it was amazing for the M Squared PR resume, after a while, it was just like, oh my gosh, this burnout is getting all too real.
All by yourself.
Yeah.
So to an entrepreneur or to a different brand, would you tell them to focus on, again, the Tom Fords are really cool and sexy, but do you tell them to focus on that or, any other client? How do you it's really hard to say no to a Tom Ford.
Yeah, it
right?
really is.
You want to get in front of it.
Personally, I love fashion.
Of
you
course,
love fashion,
yes.
Turjo. So it was a no-brainer
Right,
for me.
right.
Tom Ford, I remember his days at Gucci. I remembered a lot about his story. So it was like a no-brainer. If we win this, we're taking this, right? But I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to, what do you like personally? Right? Because if you like it personally and it's not going to be a huge ramp up to learn the business, go for it.
Right.
For me, I love fashion.
Right.
I love travel. So hospitality made so much sense.
I can see the spark while you're talking about it. Right.
I love all those things and they just light me up. And so, I think if you know what you're talking about and it's a personal connection, go for it.
Yeah. I know you love food because so many times where I'm like, Marsha,
I get it
tonight?
all the time. My text is always going off.
Can you get me in this restaurant? And
Yep.
impossible restaurants in Atlanta. Marsha's like, I know this guy, I know that guy. And 3 minutes later, reserved. So cool. So again, walking back down this road of fame, sexy, cool, and then you still have a company to run.
Yeah.
Right. And I went through this personally where you have something mundane and boring in front of you, or you could take it skyrocket. Again, because I struggled with that in the past, right? What do you think led you to say, you know what? No, I'm good with this. And here's my core values again. I'm going to treat this customer, even though it's a name nobody heard of, especially in crisis management, from that sexy. How do you take that leap and how hard was that? Was it difficult?
Yeah. No, it wasn't. One of the things and the mottos at 4C, it's more of an internal motto.
Yeah.
But their motto internally was, treat celebrities like regular people and regular people like celebrities. Right? And so when I started working towards smaller businesses, even when I met MEX, I remember that interview session, right? And I was like, I want to make oil sexy.
Yes, you said that day one.
Right?
Yes.
I said, I want to make it sexy. And that was always my mindset, is that no one really talks about fuel.
No.
How do I get them to talk about it?
Right.
What do I have to say? How do I have to twist the story a little bit to make it more appealing?
Right.
And so that has always been, I guess, my secret weapon, is that I will make people enjoy it. I will find a way to turn it into a trend, tie it into a trend, and just make it something that people want to talk about.
You definitely did. I mean, you took fuel and you made it look cool. Right? So that was, talk about challenges.
Yeah, it was a challenge. Learning that industry and just having fun with it. But I had you, right? And it was like having you and all of the things about you, I was able to pick away at and make it a story, from your watch collection to where you grew up to, how you got into this industry, just picking it apart and making it all a story.
I think one great talent that you have that, for us to have you was so important, but you are very good about learning your audience, learning your customer. Mm-hmm. We spend a lot of time, like personal time together, and you always have the right questions, and you're a very good listener. I think that really, really helps get to the next stage because people trust you. Yeah. Trust is big.
Trust is huge. It's a relationship.
Because think about it, I'm taking, or anyone's taking their brand
and giving it to me,
giving it to you, and
to manage it. Yeah,
you are the face of
That's huge.
That's huge.
Yeah,
people over or underestimate, I should say.
Yeah,
that. But I mean, you have the keys to my brand.
Yeah,
my life work,
and you don't know what I'm doing behind the scenes with your brand to get it even more exposure. So it's a lot of trust.
We interviewed a lot of people in Atlanta before we went with you personally. And I'm sure a lot of people has with you, but everyone's like, "Here's what I'm gonna do." Blah blah blah. Well, hello, I'm still here. You want to listen to what I want to do?
Right.
Oh, we're going to get you in this cover, that cover. I don't want to be on that cover.
Yeah.
Here's what I want my story to be out there. And I think, you spoke the least and got the most done. So, talking about habits and who you are, what do you think is your number one habit that led you to all this success? If you
I
had
think you nailed it. Listening.
Yeah.
I listen, and I listen not for what people say, but also what they don't say.
Right.
Right. And so taking those and filling in the gaps, I kind of can pull together a really good plan based on what the client has said, but also backfilled with some of my own ideas. But again, based on what they want.
I mean, you made Lamar Frady look pretty cool for a little bit. That's a challenge for anyone that doesn't know.
All the fun photo shoots, everything, right? Bringing it to life. Yeah, it was fun.
And you created such a good atmosphere, bonding sessions that we didn't know we could have. Again, making feel fun again, basically.
Yeah.
That was a difficult task.
Yeah.
Listening. No, I could definitely attest to that.
Thank you.
How do you do, where you do listen well, but you challenge your customers a lot? Again, I could personally say that you did it for the better. But when, to push the right buttons, like I'll give you one example. I still remember we won the Most Admired CEO in Atlanta, 2022 or 2023. I can't recall now.
Yeah.
And you never told myself that I had to give a speech in front of a lot of people. And I'm glad you did it, because then you'd panic and you'd think about it. And it was like last minute, you're like, oh, yeah. You took me to the side. I remember, like, you're going to get in front of a lot of people here and just be calm.
Yeah.
It's you and, like, the CEO of Equifax, right? No big deal. Just go ahead and do it. And it was as natural as they came.
Yeah.
How do
you
do
did a
that?
great job, because I always tell people no one knows what you do better than you do.
Right.
Just go out there and tell your story, right? Even in a PR capacity, my job is to tell the story, but I know I'm going to leave something out. I'm telling the Cliff's Notes version.
Right.
I just want to tell it in a way that makes it appealing to that journalist or editor, because I know ultimately they want to talk to my client. So if you recall when you and Lamar did the ABC interview, right, with Crystal Edmondson, that was great. And she really got a chance to know you guys. And every time I see her, she's like, that interview goes down as one of the best.
Oh, cool.
It just went all over the place. There was laughter. It was funny, but she also didn't know a lot about fuel. So you guys educated her.
Right.
So again, you know your business, tell your story.
That's amazing. Give me a time where you had the most difficult time with a client, and how did you overcome that?
Oh, wow. I would
know
say,
there's a lot.
Yeah. In hospitality retail, it wasn't so much of a difficult time. I think I see more of a difficult time on the crisis side where I am now, because I'm dealing with a crisis, right? And I'm trying to help a client understand that their brand can recover even while it's at its lowest point. And that's hard for them to imagine. They just want everything to be okay again.
Right.
And so I'm not only dealing with media and fast deadlines, I'm also dealing with somebody who is very vulnerable and at their lowest point. And typically it's the CEO, the COO. It's someone at the very top of the company. And so it's a lot to deal with. It's not just the issue. Now you're trying to manage expectations and attitude and responses that are very emotional.
And very quick.
So
help the audience understand, what is crisis management? Like, at what point does it become a crisis?
It's a crisis if it disrupts anything that is the day-to-day. So if you normally come to the office and you have coffee and 2 meetings from 9 to 10, if anything about that goes sideways and you're dealing with something that is very last minute and you weren't expecting to deal with, it's a crisis, right? And all of your efforts are going towards putting that fire out, you need to call Marsha. Yeah.
Why does one need to have you on speed dial?
Why?
Yes.
I think mostly because they don't want their brand to be compromised. And by being compromised, that just means, it's on social media. And now all of a sudden you've got comments and Google reviews that are not authentic.
Right.
You've got the phone is ringing and people that you've never talked to or don't know of are asking you questions, difficult questions, and your brand is in jeopardy. So it's really important that you make that call quickly because, again, media, they're not probably paying attention to your company, but they will be once all of a sudden they start to see a trend on social media.
Usually
They're
not a
like,
good
who
thing.
is this company?
Right.
And it's in trouble, right? And
right.
normally that's when a lot of our clients call. Social media has gone awry.
Right. So, we had this conversation with our very first guest, Trey Hayden, and it's very similar to the context where the right time to hire an advisor from, what we do now on sell-side advising or buy-side advisor, whatever it may be, or Wolfmat, whatever, the right time to plan that is way ahead of it, not when it arrives.
Yeah.
So very similar to crisis management. Isn't it better not to call Marsha when the day has come where you're like,
correct,
Marsha, how do I get this off Instagram or social media?
It's too late.
Right.
Like, it's really important to have crisis on speed dial. It's almost like having an attorney that you have a relationship with so that when you call and need that person, they already know who you are,
Right.
and they can just dive right in. Crisis is the same way. You need to have a crisis plan, and you need to have a crisis person or team that you
Right.
can call upon, because when you need it, you don't have time for long introductions.
No,
you
you
need to
don't.
get straight to business.
But again, knowing someone like you that has so much pride, behind your brand and your business, and your brand really is other people's brands and image of them, right? And you're protecting that. Again, I think, for entrepreneurs out there that is trying to create a brand here again, wouldn't you be the first call when you start the business or seeing scale? Because at that point, I know you, you know me, you know my weak points, right?
Yeah.
And you get very personal too, by the way.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be better to call you way ahead and say, if I ever need, hope not, but if I ever need you, it's easier than...
It would be much easier, but most people don't plan their business
Right.
for a crisis.
Right.
They never think anything's going to go wrong. They think everything's going to go up
We're
and right.
entrepreneurs. Everything's going to
Exactly.
be great, and
Yeah.
we're going to build this thing and sell it tomorrow.
Yeah.
But then, uh-oh.
Yeah. And I sit at home a lot and I watch the 12 o'clock news, the 5 o'clock news, and I'm like, ruh-roh, that person needs to call me, right?
Right.
Like, especially when I watch it and the reporter says, oh, and we reached out to XYZ and there was no comment. And I'm
Right.
like, oh my God. they
That
need
means
to
you're
call
guilty,
me.
automatic. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's so much to be said about that company for not being responsive and not having someone to jump in and handle it.
Right.
Because again, the CEO and the executive team, they're probably running around trying to put the fire out, but they're ignoring the media. And that's the person really carrying the story.
So how do you solve that? So now, in the middle of the day, God forbid something bad happened.
Mm-hmm.
What is the next step? So now I call Marsha
Mm-hmm.
and say, this is happening.
Yeah.
What is your next step?
My next step is I always say honesty. I'm like your physician. I can't fix anything if I don't know all of the truth, right? So I always say, tell me the truth. And I need one person, one primary point of contact.
Right.
Because what happens is when in a crisis, there's so much going on. And if there's misinformation coming to me, it can totally dilute what I'm trying to do. So again, it's really important that they, one, really have a crisis team in the beginning. If they don't, call me when they need me. But the first conversation is tell me the truth, tell me the facts, and tell me who the point of contact is going to be so that we can start working.
And then you get that, and then are you in front of the media at that point immediately, or how do you manage?
The media just wants a statement.
Yeah.
They just want to know what is happening, who did it happen to, and when is everything going to return to normal. And usually I can draft a statement in about 20 minutes flat and get that out. Once they're satisfied, they usually go away. But the only thing is, one media presence usually triggers others to want to carry that story too.
No for an answer is really a bad answer.
Horrible.
It's the worst thing in the world.
Horrible.
How do you deal with, unfortunately, the time we live in today where a rumor spreads?
Mm-hmm.
Good, bad, or ugly, it doesn't matter. A rumor is a rumor, but people believe it immediately.
Correct.
What do you tell companies and how to handle that? And again, something they may not have even done.
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
At the end of the day, you still have the power to tell the truth.
Right.
And you have, platforms like social media that allow you to get the truth out there very quickly.
Right.
And so it's always about getting the truth, but also taking that as an opportunity to address your constituency, right? So who's your target audience? What else do you want them to know? What are you committed to?
Right.
And how did this rumor get out there to begin with, right? Was there a glitch with their email system? Were they hacked? Was it a disgruntled employee that went behind their back and did something?
Right.
There's so many ways to unpack that. But again, the truth always prevails.
And knowing you, you always turn it around and make it a very big positive.
Yeah.
And how can that be a positive?
Yeah, I think, by determining who you are, and I think that's so important in the beginning, is that companies, they just want to open up and start the business, but who are you? What's your community giving platform, right? Like, what's important to you? Is it at-risk youth? Is it planting trees? Once you kind of figure out who you are as an organization, it's so much easier to recover, because then you can start going back to your core values and telling that story. So I always say, when the dust has settled and the crisis has kind of gone away, let's go back to who we are and let's start doing some of the things that make your company your company. Why do your employees enjoy working for you? Let's highlight some of those things. Who is your longest standing employee? Let's tell that story about why they're still here. So there's so many ways to kind of recover that brand. But yeah, that comes later.
Again, the planning, it seems like the hardest thing.
Oh, yeah.
A crisis really becomes bad when you're in a crisis yourself, don't know who to call. It just becomes really disturbed.
Yeah.
So now think about the worst possible crisis and companies going under bad. At that point, is there any hope? Like, what do you do? Like, I'm talking about the worst case possible scenario. Something really went wrong.
Yeah.
What do you do at that point? And you just got a last minute call.
Yeah.
You don't know me from Adam.
Yeah. And some companies and situations, they just can't be saved.
Got it.
And I'm usually a pretty good judge of character and situations to be able to make that determination, right? And so I'm usually very honest up front if I can help them. If it's an industry I've never worked with, I generally will not try to learn on their dime unless they have somebody that they're going to dedicate to kind of bring me up to speed. A good example of that is there was a crisis in Canada. It was last year, and I remember them calling me, and I thought I could handle it. But then it got into the medical area, and healthcare is free in Canada, and there's so many buttons and strings to that situation. Right. It got to be overwhelming, and I was putting things in a statement that were inaccurate, and the client was like, Marsha, this is not right. And I was like, okay, I don't think I'm the right person for this because it's international. It's a country that I'm not as familiar with. I love Canada, but I didn't know enough about it.
Staying true to yourself.
Yeah,
again.
I wasn't rapid enough because it was too much of a learning curve. So I had to resign from it.
Right. Yeah, it's better speaking the truth again.
Oh, yeah.
Than trying
but
to
when
hurt
you're
someone.
honest to yourself, you can be honest to others.
Right. So is there a magic number that a company has to be XY size to have a PR or a crisis management team?
You could be a solopreneur and still have PR. It just depends on what it is that you are offering to the public and how big your audience is, right? And who your competition is. Right. How much do you want to set yourself apart and stand out? Because that's what PR essentially does. It elevates you and it separates you from your competition.
Because, a lot of my audience, small to mid-sized businesses, right? I'm sure they're like, I don't need a PR. I'm doing $5 million a year or $4 million of revenue. Is that the right one for me? Because PR has such an ocean where, again, it goes to the Four Seasons and the big names of the world, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying that there's no magic number?
No, but PR doesn't have to mean that you have to hire an agency. There's so much that you can do on your own.
You posting a picture
as a business
PR.
owner. Yeah. Okay. Every time you post on social media, that is PR. Every time you talk about your company, that is PR, right? I always say start with your elevator pitch. If you walked into a hotel lobby and Oprah was there waiting on the same elevator, but she's getting off on the next floor and she says, oh, what do you do? Yeah. Can you tell her between the lobby and the first floor? If you can't, it's back to our original point. Right. You can't be a jack of all trades. Yeah. What do you do? Because you're going to go to the balcony and all the way back down before you can tell her what you do if you're doing everything.
Right. Oprah's in the elevator and she wants to invest some money in your company. And what do? Let's have a dinner tonight. Yeah. Like, no.
Oprah doesn't have time to have dinner with you.
I'm not going to have dinner with you. I'm not going to have. So through the ups and downs in business, your personal experience, and you see a lot of other people, what helps you stay motivated?
Oh, wow. I would say client success. When I see my clients winning and the work that I'm doing for them is making an impact, especially on their bottom line, and there's a true monetary ROI, I'm ecstatic.
That's amazing.
I'm ecstatic. Yeah.
I didn't expect a different answer, but it's just so refreshing to hear people that actually care so much about their clients.
Yeah, I really do, because that's why they hired me, right? They want to do better than they were doing before. And so when I see that the tide is turning, especially if I can push them into another area of their business and help them expand, because maybe why they're not successful is because they're doing something that's too much like their competition. What can you do differently that you can own?
No, it's amazing, right? With PR, again, M2 squared here. When you get an accolade or some recognition, it motivates the team so much as well, not just the entrepreneur or the leader there.
Yeah,
it motivates everyone, and now all of a sudden they're so proud to work on things. Also, talk about a little bit on when we work together too. You do much more than PR. You're such a pivotal. A major part of building team/culture. Tell me that. Again, you weren't hired for that.
Yeah.
But it seems like naturally you're so big on motivating team and culture.
Because I think it's a holistic approach, right? It's not just about the company, but who is the company? Because companies are people. They're made up of people.
Right.
Who are the people, right? How do we peel back the layers and figure out what's the story there?
Right.
Because once we're able to talk about the people and what makes the company tick, now we've got the human interest angle that every media person is interested in, right? They're not really out here to talk about companies and what they do. They want to talk about companies and who they are. Right. And so I always like to see who makes up the company. Even when it's a restaurant, I'm interested in how cool does this bartender look? Does this bartender have tattoos? Can they shake and stir and throw something up in the air? If there's no story there, then I'm looking for the thing that sets you apart. So I'm always, it's a holistic approach. It's not just about the company. What makes this company tick?
I think that's very important what you said. Again, you go to the coolest restaurant. You're never going to meet the owner.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to meet the chef.
Correct.
You're going to meet the receptionist.
Yeah.
And then from there, you sit at a table.
Yeah.
You meet a server, or you're at the bar. And I love sitting at the bar. I just love the experience. My favorite. And you get to meet all these people.
My favorite place, yeah.
But you don't really meet the owner. So that experience is all. You find food everywhere now, right? Food it's not hard to find food.
Yeah.
But the experience says it all.
Yeah.
It's really important.
Yeah. But when you sit at that table and your server says to you, I'm Marsha, and you start striking up a conversation and they say, I've been here 15 years. I can tell you anything about this menu. I have met the owner.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
because if you're working for someone for 15 years, I know your owner's a great person.
Of course.
Running an upstanding company because you've been here so long.
Right. And my first question to ask is, because I don't know what I'm going to eat when I go to a restaurant. I don't really care about the food.
What do you like on the menu?
What do you like on the menu?
And how they answer that is such a telling answer.
Most of the time, and you go to a lot of these really good restaurants, and they're like, kind of like it all.
Right. And don't ask me what am I in the mood for. Just tell me what you like on the menu.
And then you meet someone like, well, here's a special but.
Yeah.
And then now you start a whole conversation. And by the way, this drink, you know what? Let me get the bartender over here. The bartender comes over, and this guy looks like a mixologist, and now you're like, amazing.
You're like, this is my favorite place.
Yeah, I had an experience like that. You actually got me onto. Forget the name of the restaurant now, in Brookhaven, the steakhouse.
Arnett's?
Yeah.
Yes. One of my favorites.
And it was one of those things where it's the Marsha experience. You walk in, and the receptionist is like, complimenting me on something. I'm like, yes, I look cool in front of my wife now. You go to the bar, and they're like all over you, and they're trying to help you. And they're like, you know what? Here's a couple of my favorite drinks. Try it. See, which one do you like more? And now start a conversation. Now you're like, wow, I feel like a local here. It's my first time.
Yeah.
Such a cool feeling.
Yeah.
So what's next? Seems like you went through a major cycle already in life.
I did.
If I didn't know you, I'd think you're 93 years old because you lived like 4 lives already. What's next for M2 Squared?
Yeah, so I kind of went into semi-retirement in 2024. Made a big decision to kind of scale my agency back and focus on the crisis communications and becoming a solopreneur. About to be an empty nester. So big decisions there.
Hard to believe.
I know. But time flies. And I just thought, okay, what's next for Marsha?
Right.
And it was really a self-conversation. And one of my favorite things to do, just to always find my center, is travel. And I've traveled all kinds of places throughout the world and landed in Colombia. And so I've called Colombia home.
And it's not Columbia, South Carolina. It's
No,
Columbia.
Colombia with all O's in
Yeah.
it. No U's. But yeah, I've been calling Colombia home since about 2021.
That is so
Yeah,
cool.
so I go back and forth, and I'm in Atlanta the majority of the time. That will obviously change when my daughter goes off to college, because she will be the one that makes me an official empty nester. So yeah, I'm excited about what's ahead. Just relaxing
good
and
for
working when I want to.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. How do you keep up with the whole revolution in technology?
I don't.
Right.
I don't,
Yeah,
Turjo.
okay.
It meets me where I am.
Yeah.
I love technology. It's a big part of PR.
Right.
But I use the systems and the software that are imperative to what I do, and not all of it is. Like, for example, social media, while I use it, not as much anymore, because I'm not representing as many hotels and restaurants. When I'm using it, it's usually to tell a client, deactivate yours. Pause on your commenting, because we've got another situation that's bigger than what you were promoting yesterday, right? So just pause all of that. So technology, while I love it, I don't have to stick my big toe in it every day. So as it changes and evolves, I just kind of get to keep up.
So you use it to your advantage.
I use it
not
to my
trying
advantage.
to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The perfect Marsha answer. Yeah, I wouldn't think anything else. On the subject of technology, one thing that scares me now, just for other entrepreneurs, right? AI.
Mm-hmm.
AI is especially when it comes to PR or other things, they're like, oh, ChatGPT could do that for me. And I feel like it's a dangerous topic that people are leaning on.
We cannot use it in my office at all.
Thank you. I mean,
yeah, it's an integrity
how
thing.
do you create a PR or your image, or on ChatGPT, they don't know you. And don't get me wrong, it's great for, hey, what's the nearest restaurant near me or whatever, right? Again, I'm not the technology expert. Do you have to face a lot of that with new companies that are saying, hey, I'll just use AI?
Well, I think the thing about ChatGPT is that, and a lot of these AI programs, is that it doesn't help you differentiate yourself. And that's what PR is all about. If I can put something in ChatGPT, the next competitor can, right? And now we both sound the same.
Right.
No, it's about sounding different. It's about separating yourself and, creating your own lane. ChatGPT and AI doesn't do that for you.
And it is, for all the entrepreneurs out there that are they think they're so smart and hiring, ChatGPT, they think they are. It's so easy to tell you're doing it. Like when somebody sends me an email, I'd rather have a 2-sentence email replying that sounds genuine than an AI version that is long.
And has gone to everyone.
Right. And you lose my interest right away because you're like, okay, come on, just get to the point. Right. So I think it's almost dangerous on people, how they're leaning on it. And again, you could use it for your advantage too, but you can't replace the human side from that.
At all. And it's the difference between, do you want to get it done or get it done quickly, right? And it tells me a lot about who you are if you just want to get it done quickly, or if you're being truly intentional.
Right.
And so for PR, it's about being intentional.
I agree with you. So what is the future of, we spoke about a lot about planning. So strategic communication, what is the future of that? How do you see that?
Yeah, I really see it with companies being intentional about what they want to do, but maybe not planning out a year, maybe planning 6 months instead, right? Because we just don't know what the inevitable is going to give us. Like, look at LA. We talked about that earlier, right? Who knew that all of those residents were going to be without house and home, right? So again, I think it's about short-term planning, giving a plan of 6 months and saying, okay, when we get to maybe month 4 or 5, let's start talking about the next 6 months and what we want to do. But being open-minded, because again, things change so fast. Technology changes. Everything changes. The news cycle changes. Trends. And so how do we stay on the cutting edge of who we are and what we want to do and where we want to be without being bogged down by a plan that we wrote 12 months ago?
That
we feel stuck to. No.
No, that's
Keep
smart.
it fresh.
I agree with you because again, sometimes entrepreneurs feel like, you know what, this is my company and this is where I wanted to be. But guess what? In a perfect world, that would be.
Yeah.
But it's a company. It's live. It's breathing. You never know when you have to pivot.
Absolutely.
And a lot of entrepreneurs don't plan ahead. They don't talk about it. They're so afraid of talking about it. What do you say to them, right? Again, defining who you are, question almost.
Yeah. If you were a business that was around during the pandemic, everyone had to pivot,
Yes.
right? And so if you've come along after that, I think it's very important to figure out your why. Why are you in business? And if certain things go away, how can you pivot? I mean, we were working with fine dining restaurants during the pandemic that had never done to-go service, that now had to figure out where do they even buy containers, right, for to-go orders, and pivoting in that regard. So I think it's very important that everyone think about a pandemic and how they can pivot their business when things get to their worst levels.
That's amazing. Talking about children and being an empty nester, what is Marsha's legacy that you want to leave behind?
Oh, my legacy. Wow, that I was the best PR person ever. No, but really that I was amazing at what I did, but above and beyond all of that, I gave back. And that has always been a part of what has been important to me, to always give back. And I give back in ways that it highlights what's important to me. Right now, I'm really laser focused on all things Alzheimer's because my mom is living with Alzheimer's. So
sorry to hear that,
I've given back in that regard a lot. At-risk youth, I do a lot for at-risk youth and just try to show them hope and what the future can become. I just did something on Friday or Saturday where we were giving away books and helping, at-risk youth prepare for college and their next chapter. And then fashion. I do a lot for fashion in terms of raising money for breast cancer awareness. Whatever I can use to tell the story and raise money, I'm going to do it. But that is always going to be a part of me, is giving back.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah, I love that.
So where's Marsha in 5 years?
Marsha is in Colombia on the beach with a cocktail in hand, maybe answering a crisis call.
Maybe.
But yeah, maybe. And I think that's the beautiful thing about life is that you get to make decisions, right? And so many of us, we get caught in the rut of what we're doing that we don't pause long enough to think about what we really want to do.
So for an entrepreneur, right, that's listening here, a lot of them, reach out to me and is this the right time to sell, retire? How do you define that? Is it this amount of dollars or is it something else?
One thing you told me years ago, and it always stuck with me, Turjo, you said, you can't love what you do. You got to just love the money.
Yeah.
Because if you love what you do, you're kind of in the way of potentially making more.
Yeah.
Right? So, I think it really boils down to knowing that you love what you do, but at the end of the day, how much bigger or greater can it be? Right? And if you step away from just loving the business and you think about all the possibilities sometimes outweigh what you're currently doing.
Love it.
Yeah.
No, I agree. So Marsha's in Colombia 5 years from now. How do I get my restaurant hookups? What do I do?
Listen, there's so much space there for amazing restaurants. You cannot go wrong. You won't even need me as a resource in Cartagena.
Yeah, really?
Everything is amazing.
Okay, how about that? I'll take you up on that. All right, so thank you for all that information. A few just rapid fire questions for you.
Yeah.
Your favorite fashion brand, if you had to pick one.
Right
she's gonna get in trouble for this one.
No, right now it's Balmain.
Balmain.
Yeah, love them.
All right. Any place besides Colombia, if you had to pick to live, where would it be?
Portugal. Yeah.
If I said, the best restaurant tonight to go eat, what would that be?
Tonight, I'm loving Del Bar, the new one in Buckhead. Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. It has a little bit of everything, Mediterranean, their rice, everything, and the cocktails to die for.
5 second of advice to any entrepreneur that comes to you and says, Marsha, I'm starting out, what do you tell them?
Use the phone. Don't always rely on email. Build relationships. They don't like talking on the phone, and it blows my mind.
You gave me so many great advices in life. I think I love that one. People just...
Everything's email and a text, and it's like so much can be misconstrued, and things take so much longer to resolve through email and text.
You're not going to build a relationship.
Yeah.
And by the way, again, being a salesperson here, it's so much easier for someone to say no to you on email or text than tell you on the phone.
You can be so much more convincing over the phone or in person.
Yeah, they'll just say no. It's easy. But on the phone, they're like, well, I know Marsha for a long time. Can I really say no? It's really difficult.
Yeah.
Where do you want your daughter to go to college? If you had to pick one,
wherever she wants to go.
Great.
I'm at that point now. I've gotten out of the way. Wherever she wants to go, because if she's happy, I'll be happy.
Your most stylish customer or client that you ever had?
You.
I wanted that one. I wanted that for the record. I'm telling
down.
her. I'm going to put that on the clip and make sure Habiba hears it every day. She's not very happy with the fashion sense, so I got to change it up a little bit.
And it's that understated kind of swag, right? It just it's effortless.
Yeah. I did not pay her to say this. I know, something like that. Well, thank you, Marsha.
Thank you, Turjo. This was so much fun.
You know what? I'm sorry. Very last thing.
Yeah.
Everyone needs a Marsha in their life. How do they get in touch with you?
Oh, gosh. British PR Girl on Instagram.
PR girl.
Yeah. Born and raised in London.
Be careful with when you do that, because I have made the mistake on following Marsha on Instagram, because it makes you feel like that you're really not that cool. If you thought you're cool, you go on her page and she's like in every magazine, with the coolest people on earth. So be careful. I have warned you guys before you check that out. But thank you, Marsha. This has been
you,
great.
Turjo.
Thank you so much.
Good to be here. Good luck with your podcast.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.